Ideas are cheap, execution is everything. You hear that all the time, right? But it's the highest hurdle for any ambitious team.
It really is.
So today, we're unpacking the system that was designed specifically to clear that hurdle. Objectives and key results. OKRs.
We've gone deep into the source material here, all the research and the first-hand accounts of how OKRs actually work in practice.
And this is the system that, it basically revolutionized Intel. It fueled Google's insane growth.
And it's still driving execution at massive places like the Gates Foundation. So our mission for this deep dive is to give you a shortcut.
Okay.
We want to show you exactly how this deceptively simple system provides the clarity you need to get exponential results. And maybe most importantly, how to measure what actually matters.
Let's set the scene then. The ultimate test case. Google, back in 1999.
Right.
John Doerr, the famous venture capitalist, he sits down with the founders, and they show him a pitch deck.
Yeah.
It's only 17 slides long.
And you have to mention the cartoons?
I was just about to. 3 of those slides were literal cartoons. And yet, Doerr was about to put an $11.8 million bet on this tiny, unproven company.
And you have to understand, the bet wasn't just on the technology. I mean, the tech was great, but...
The bet was on Larry Page's audacity.
Exactly. Doerr asks Page, so what's your target revenue? And without even hesitating, Page just shoots back $10 billion.
$10 billion.
And remember, this was like the 18th search engine on the internet at the time. They were aiming for a scale that only giants like Microsoft and IBM occupied. The stakes were just impossibly high, and you just can't get there. You can't have that 10x thinking, as Doerr calls it, without a really structured, relentless system for tracking your progress.
And that's where OKRs came in.
Mm-hmm.
But, this whole idea of structured goals,
right,
it didn't just appear out of nowhere at Intel or Google.
Not at all.
We have to rewind the clock. The real ancestry of this framework goes all the way back to 1954 with Peter Drucker's Management by Objectives, MBOs.
And what's so fascinating about MBOs is that they started as a really humanistic idea. Drucker saw that the old authoritarian style of management from the early 20th century is just terrible for morale.
So he wanted to get people involved.
Yes. He said, look, you should consult your subordinates on company goals. The thinking was, if people help choose the course, they'll be way more engaged. It was a huge philosophical step forward.
But by the 1990s, MBOs they'd failed spectacularly. And this is the key question for you listening. If Drucker's idea was so good, why did it fall apart?
It had 3 fatal flaws, systemic flaws that just actively killed ambition.
Okay, what was the first one?
First, they were centrally planned. Very top-down and stagnant. They'd be defined once a year, they'd trickle down the hierarchy, and they were almost never updated. In
a fast-moving market, that's a death sentence, isn't it?
Absolutely. They end up acting like historical documents, not operational maps.
Okay, and the second flaw?
Silos. MBOs created massive information silos. So one department would hit its objective, but since nobody knew what the team next door was doing...
They might be working against each other.
Exactly.
Yeah.
They'd optimize for their own success, sometimes at the expense of the whole organization's mission. You get delays, misalignment. It becomes rampant.
And the third flaw, the one that's the most critical.
It was the link to money. MBOs were almost always tied directly to your salary and your bonus.
Ah.
And when you connect an ambitious goal to someone's paycheck, you inject risk. Why would I take a chance on a huge goal if falling short means I lose my bonus?
You wouldn't. You'd play it safe?
You'd sandbag, you'd deliberately understate what you can do to guarantee you get the payout. And that just institutionalizes mediocrity.
Which is the very thing that Andy Grove was trying to destroy at Intel in the 70s. He's really the father of OKRs.
Grove basically applied manufacturing principles to knowledge work. He hated the idea that just being smart guaranteed success. He had this great quote. He said, "It almost doesn't matter what you know, it's what you can do. And actually accomplish that tends to be valued here."
He needed a system that demanded accomplishment.
Right. And that system boiled down to 2 really simple phrases. The first is the objective, the O. That's your direction.
The what?
The what. It should be qualitative, inspirational. It can even be long-lived, like Grove's classic example. We want to dominate the mid-range microcomputer component business. It's an ambition.
And the second part is the key result, the KR. This is the how, the measure.
Yes, these are the measurable milestones that prove you're actually achieving that objective, and they must be verifiable. Grove was a stickler on this. He'd say, at the end of the day, you have to be able to look and know, did I do that or did I not do it? Yes, no, simple, no arguments.
This is where people trip up the most, isn't it?
Yeah.
Can you give us a really clear example of a bad KR versus a good one?
For sure. A bad KR describes an activity, not an outcome. So let's say your objective is launch an industry-leading new product.
Okay.
A bad key result would be something like consult with 10 customers or analyze the marketing strategy. That's just busy work.
You could do both of those and still launch a total flop.
Precisely. A good key result describes a measurable outcome. Something like win 10 new designs for the 8085 chip or achieve 100,000 active daily users within 90 days.
There's a number.
It has to have a number.
Oh.
As Marissa Mayer said, it's not a key result unless it has a number. It has to be clear, actionable, and focused on the outcome.
And that clarity leads us right into the first big benefit, what the sources call superpower number 1, focus and commitment. OKRs are basically designed to solve organizational scatter.
Right. It's Larry Page's analogy. Winning organizations need to put more wood behind fewer arrows.
I like that.
It's all about discipline. OKRs are not your wish list. The recommendation is pretty stark, actually. Commit to only 3 to 5 top objectives per cycle, maximum.
Because if you have 12 goals, you really have 0 goals.
You have 0. Your effort is just scattered, and a huge part of focus is the discipline of deciding what not to do. And that takes real leadership.
It does. And that commitment has to start at the very top. I mean, look at the story of Ginny Kim's startup, Nuna.
Oh, it's a perfect example. They were building this critical Medicaid database. And when they first tried using OKRs, they did what everyone does. They created annual and quarterly goals and just rolled them out to the whole company at once. And in Kim's own words, the process didn't take. The goals got written down, sure, but a lot of them were just forgotten.
Why does that happen so often, that initial failure?
Because it's a huge cultural shift. You can't just order it from the top down. The executives have to model the behavior first. They have to show that they believe in it enough to use it themselves consistently, even when it's uncomfortable.
So how did Kim fix it in Nuna?
She scaled way back. She and her co-founder started using private OKRs, just for the two of them, to deepen their own commitment on the most critical goals.
Like what?
Like hiring a VP for their employer business. They used the system rigorously on their foundational goals first, and only then, once they had internalized the rhythm themselves, did they socialize it with the wider team.
So commitment is like a muscle. You have to exercise it before it can lift the whole organization.
Yeah, that's a great way to put it. Okay, so if commitment is the foundation, then the ability to push beyond your limits, that's the payload. Which brings us to superpower number 4, stretch for amazing.
This is where we get into the aspirational goals, the big, hairy, audacious goals, or BHAs.
Exactly. These are the goals that sit right on the border between what you know you can do and what you only dream you can do.
And Google actually institutionalized this. They split their goals into 2 different baskets, it's a vital distinction for understanding the psychology of ambition.
It is. So first you have your committed objectives. These are the things that you absolutely must attain, 100%. Think product releases, sales targets, compliance deadlines.
The non-negotiables.
Right. If you miss a committed objective, you need to stop and figure out why.
And then you have the riskier ones, the aspirational or stretch objectives.
And these are the goals aimed at the impossible, or at least the nearly impossible. And the rule of thumb here is really counterintuitive.
Which is?
If you hit 100% on a stretch goal, the goal wasn't ambitious enough.
So you're actually expecting to fail.
To partially fail, yes. At Google, the expected attainment for a stretch goal is 60 to 70%. They expect you to fall short 30 to 40% of the time.
That's fascinating.
The point isn't to punish people. It's to stimulate problem solving, to force innovation, and to push everyone past what they thought their limits were. If you're hitting 100% all the time, you are playing it way too safe.
And this is where the history gets really high stakes. Let's talk about Intel's legendary stretch goal, Operation Crush. This was back in 1979.
This was a make-or-break moment for them. Intel was getting absolutely hammered by their main competitor, Motorola. The sales team was just demoralized. They felt defeated.
So management sets this, just an audacious company-wide objective. They wanted to achieve 2,000 design wins.
Which was triple their normal numbers for that time. A massive, massive stretch for a team that was already on the ropes.
So how on earth did they get everyone to commit to a goal that seemed impossible?
They used this brilliant psychological contract. The main incentive was a trip to Tahiti for everyone who hit their individual quota. But, and this is the genius part, the marketing manager, Jim Lally, he added a twist.
What was the twist?
If a single salesperson in an entire district failed to hit their quota, the entire district lost the trip.
Wow. That's intense. So it immediately changes from an individual goal to a communal obligation.
100%. The accountability wasn't to your boss anymore. It was to your peers, your friends, the people you worked with every day. It just weaponized peer pressure for a positive outcome.
And the result of that radical commitment.
It worked. Despite how tough the goal was, that collective pressure it created momentum. They ended up achieving over 2,300 design wins by the end of the year.
Incredible.
It secured Intel's future in the market, and it proved just how powerful a coordinated stretch objective could be.
And that successful execution leads us right to superpower number 3, tracking for accountability. Because you can have the best goals, but if you don't know where you are, you're just lost.
Tracking is completely non-negotiable. OKRs are living things. You have to do regular check-ins, preferably every week. And the progress is usually scored on a simple scale, from 0.0 to 1.0.
Okay, but that numerical score can be misunderstood. How do you stop that 0.0 from feeling punitive, like you're just back at the old MBO system again?
That's the critical difference. In a healthy OKR system, a low score means the projection was wrong, not that the person was bad. It forces the organization to admit failure quickly and then pivot. It's an evaluation of the goal or the system, not the individual's worth.
Can you show us how that worked with the Operation Crush data?
Sure. They were tracking 2 key results for a particular objective, getting the 8 megahertz part into production. It was a fiasco. There were polysilicon issues. It scored a 0.0. That's just objective reality.
No hiding from it.
None. But the arithmetic coprocessor, they shipped 470 out of a target of 500. That's a 0.9. The system demands accountability, but by separating the outcome from judgment, it allows teams to admit that 0.0 failure without fear.
And that speed of honest admission is so valuable. So if an objective becomes obsolete mid-quarter, it's not a chain, right? You can just change it.
Oh, absolutely. OKRs are guardrails, not chains. The company Remind, for example, they built a peer-to-peer payment system that was a total flop. A clear 0.0. They looked at the data, saw no one used it, and immediately changed the goal. They shifted their resources to a totally different system that started driving and growing like crazy. The point isn't rigid adherence, it's rapid adaptation based on transparent data. And all these mechanics, the focus, the tracking, the stretching, they're all driven by superpower number 2, align and connect for teamwork. And the engine for this is radical transparency.
So transparency is the default setting here. Goals are public, everyone can see them, from the CEO all the way down. On paper, that sounds great, but what's the real strategic advantage of forcing everyone to publish their ambition and their vulnerability?
Well, it demolishes those information silos instantly. When everyone can see what the CEO is focused on and what the team next door is struggling with, it creates this organizational gravity. Meritocracy starts to flourish because everyone sees where the most valuable work is coming from.
But alignment doesn't just happen on its own, does it? Especially not when you're growing fast. The MyFitnessPal story is a great example of the chaos that transparency is trying to solve.
It is. When they scaled from 10 to 30 people, their productivity just cratered. They had 3 different product managers, all working on perfectly good goals. One on premium features, one on the API, one on the login experience.
But they were rowing in different directions.
Completely, because the dependencies weren't explicit and public. Coordination was a mess, deadlines got missed, and everyone felt busy but completely ineffective.
So how does transparency fix that dependency problem?
It creates instant horizontal connection. When Intuit was shifting its massive infrastructure to the cloud, they used public OKRs for exactly this reason. Teams like data and analytics, which usually work in a vacuum, could immediately see the shared objectives and link up with the financial systems team.
So they can manage dependencies proactively instead of just cleaning up messes reactively.
Exactly. The CIO, Atticus Tyson, he noticed that because the goals were so clear and so public, employees all over the world started using the same 3 verbs: rationalize, modernize, and secure.
It aligns the language.
It aligns the language and the strategy. It makes it crystal clear that every single decision has to square with the company's highest objective, with their North Star. But to really embed all of this into a company's DNA, you need one final crucial piece: the human element, and that is CFRs, conversations, feedback, and recognition.
Okay.
This is the second part of continuous performance management that really strengthens the whole OKR culture.
And the poster child for why this is so necessary have to be Adobe. Just 6 years ago, they were paralyzed by the old annual review process.
It's a staggering story. Managers were spending 8 hours per employee on these reviews. That's 80,000 manager hours wasted every year.
That's the equivalent of 40 full-time hires.
All spent on a mechanical process that was actually damaging morale.
And we know it was damaging morale because their voluntary attrition, people quitting it, spiked every February, right after the reviews came out.
This system created zero value. It just assigned blame and checked boxes.
So Adobe took radical action. How did they use these CFRs to get rid of that old system?
They just abolished annual reviews entirely. And the destructive process of stack ranking. They replaced it all with something called check-in, a lightweight, flexible system focused on quarterly goals, regular feedback, and career growth.
And crucially, they decoupled it from compensation.
That was key. The manager's job shifted from being a judge to being a coach. They were empowered with budgets and trained to give highly specific performance feedback at least once every 6 weeks, and often weekly.
The goal was to replace an administrative time sink with a system that actually builds people up.
A system that fosters growth and enables people to deliver on those ambitious OKRs.
You know, this speaks directly to the legacy of the coach, Bill Campbell, the mentor to so many leaders in Silicon Valley at Google, Apple, and Intuit.
Campbell just embodied the cultural layer that OKRs need to succeed. He demanded operational excellence, total accountability, total transparency. He'd even use a bullshit rubber stamp to cut through ambiguity.
He was famous for that.
But he balanced that fearless, honest feedback, what he called creative confrontation, with this profound culture of care and love for his teams. He insisted the system only works if the culture values the team and the mission above all else.
So the pursuit of that 0.0 to 1.0 score, it's not a policy issue. It's a matter of trust and a shared mission.
Exactly.
You push toward the goal not because your boss told you to, but because the OKR is transparently critical to the company and because your colleagues are counting on you.
Precisely. The mechanical rigor of OKRs provides the structure, but the CFRs, they provide the energy, the growth, and the human commitment you need to sustain that 10x thinking.
So what does this all mean for you? We've seen how OKRs, when they're supported by those continuous conversations, feedback, and recognition, they provide the clarity and the framework you need to push past just incremental gains.
It's a system that forces you to choose fewer arrows, focus your wood, and aim for that 60% stretch target every single time.
And if you look at the core lesson that connects all these stories, from Intel's Operation Crush to the Adobe Revolution, it seems to be that the most powerful and energizing OKRs, they often come from the frontline contributors, not from management.
The people who are closest to the work, they're the ones who really know where the blockages are.
Which raises a really important question for you, the individual listening to this. If transparency and accountability are what an organization needs to change its culture and achieve those audacious goals, what is the single most important red flag? That uncomfortable truth, the thing nobody wants to admit is holding you back, that you need to surface to your organization right now.
Identifying that one problem, that latent polysilicon issue that will guarantee a 0.0 failure if it's ignored. That's the first and maybe the most courageous step in setting an OKR that truly matters and can transform your organization.
Use these principles to bring clarity and commitment to your own mission. That was the deep dive.